Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net. We're talking about another lost media. And I have gotten, in the past of my lost media videos, a very enthusiastic commenter, and I do read your comments, everybody, a very enthusiastic commenter who has repeatedly requested that I comment on animation. I basically talk about an animated lost media. And I hope this one fits the bill. I really do, because I'm not much of an animation enthusiast, and even though, well, with a couple of exceptions, obviously, I really do like specific animated series, but I'm not in general. And a lot of people have talked about animation a lot better than I certainly could. But I think that this piece of lost media that I'm going to be talking about today is obscure enough that nobody knows what I'm talking about, and everybody will be able to at least appreciate that I've released a video about something that nobody really has been talking about. About 10 years ago, back when, 10 years ago, probably 20 years ago, there was a plugin called Macromedia Flash, and it was king. If you did not have Flash installed on your computer, you probably would not be able to view half the web. And the reason why is because at the time, most websites were either simple HTML scripts of like text and images, or they were heavily interactive, touch sensitive of interfaces, which people actually did prefer because you could do a lot with it, that ran on a script system called Flash, essentially. Flash was a plugin that was originally developed by Macromedia. It later got sent over to other companies. I think eventually Adobe bought it or something like that. And they started working on it. But essentially, it was a plugin. It was CPU-based, and what you could do with it was a lot of everything. You could basically create animation through it. You could create video streams with it, or video stream players with it. You could, and basically it would all be CPU intensive, but you would be able to do a lot of interactivity with it. The downside is that it was extremely insecure. You could very easily get a virus just from having it installed on your computer. If you went to the wrong website at the wrong time while you were searching around the web for something, you could, just because you had Flash installed, get a virus. It could be used to deploy a lot of bad computer viruses and things like that. And because of that, there were constant updates to it. Just constant. But certainly by about 2007, 2008, there were a lot of studios, particularly or companies, particularly Apple, that realized Flash was on its way out. Flash, they had hit a wall. Then there were other development systems that were available at the time, particularly the new, I think it was like the new HTML or XML formats and stuff like that, or web formats, that could do or replicate the features of what was possible with Flash, but also be less resource intensive, because Flash was only able to take advantage of a user's CPU. They were never able to tap into the performance of the GPU. And when you're starting to stream high definition video coming across 1080p, even certain high-end machines that had Flash installed would get jaggies. Not because their system performance was bad, it was because Flash was so bottlenecked by what it could and couldn't do that it couldn't make best use of your resources, of your system's resources, to provide you that stream with a decent performance. But that's not really the lost media. Obviously, Flash is gone. It's not supported anymore. Microsoft has cut it out. Apple's hardware never really supported it, except for the Mac, and that support's been cut off a long time ago. But there was a lot of animation, a lot of independent stuff, a lot of great websites that produced Flash exclusive content, some of which has never gotten a re-release. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Over a decade ago, there was a website called ubergeek.tv. And it was basically like a Flash portfolio for a very specific web creator. And I remember first hearing about it, I believe I don't know where I first heard about it, but I remember first hearing about it when they had released an animation called Switch to Linux. And what that video was about, and by the way, that video has been archived. You can actually look up Switch to Linux and you'll find it. What that video was it was a cool little animation that was a parody of the I'm a Mac, I'm a PC, switch to Mac commercials from like the early aughts that Apple was producing. Which I never really liked those commercials, but damn it, were they good? Were the parodies of them great? And what they were about was what this particular video, the Switch to Linux video, was about was a supervillain saying that when he was on a PC and he was trying to do his nefarious things, basically, he got a virus or something, and it fell, and the computer basically just crapped out on him. And then he switched to Linux, and he can just do like literally everything, like build fembots and and create Superman, clusters of Supermen, basically, and he talked about all the stuff that you could do with Linux, and it's like, and I'll never forget this moment where he says you got to partition your drives and patch, and he holds up a patch, your kernel, and he salutes during that. So that's just that. It was a great little piece of animation, and there was some other stuff that was available at the time as well. Like he created a soundboard for the henchmen and stuff like that, which I don't believe was archived. He also created some other animations and things like that, and a Flash game called Penguin Blood Ninja Fiasco, where a Tux the Penguin in with a samurai head, sword, would start slashing through stuff, and that was pretty funny. And part of that was archived as well. There is a Let's Play of it up, and the opening cinematic was archived. But there was something that from that site that is gone. It was never re-released. And it was a short animation film called Geeks in Love. And I know we're 7 minutes into this video right now, and I'm finally starting to talk about it, but I kind of had to provide you this background about the site and about why this is lost before I could really get into what it is that we're talking about. Geeks in Love was a 10-minute short film, fully animated within Flash. And it was essentially a love story that was narrated by the woman. I believe the way it came off like it was the animator, the director's mother, told the story about how she had met her husband, the animator's father, basically. That he was that she was in college, and that she had gotten lots of attention from men, and then there was this man named Wally that was a very big man, that worked for the development, that worked in the compiling. Basically, back then, if you were a programmer, you wouldn't be programming at your consoles. Basically, you wouldn't write your code at a console. You'd have your code planned out, and then you would, I guess, type it onto punch cards, basically, or what the code was going to be like, typed out onto punch cards in numbered sequence order, basically. But that's not where your code ended. You obviously had to compile it. You had to check if your code worked or not. And so what would happen is that you'd have like a big area. I don't even know what you would call it. This was not just before my time. This was probably before even my parents' time, where you would take your box of punch cards, you'd bring it over to a centralized area, and there would be a technician there with a giant machine, or a giant room, or a room with a giant machine in it. And they would then take each punch card one at a time, basically, and run it through the machine. And the machine would then run the program and then tell you if you got an output, basically. And then the guy would come back with whatever the output stack was, or it would tell you would not compile something in what the error was, or something like that. In which case, then you would have to go back and then redo everything all over again, basically. Now you're saying, wow, that sounds really like it takes a long time. It sounds very inefficient. And it sounds like it would be like there would be huge lines at that room, especially if there was just one technician running it. And you'd be right. And so people would try to curry favor and stuff like that. Hey, can you get my code in? I got like class or something like that, or something along those lines. So the story is about a technician named Wally, who originally, I guess, was kind of like his big frumpy guy. Meets the narrator, and she's not really impressed by him at the beginning, and then as the basically as she sees him again later on, after about a year or so of him being in the air, he got really thin, but he was still. But one thing I actually like was he got really thin, but he was still wearing the clothes as if he was a large guy. He had got new wardrobe basically, and they end up basically falling in love, and the rest of this in the story is basically about their relationship and about what happens to them throughout their lives together, basically. And I don't know if I want to spoil it or anything along those lines. Like I said, I kind of skimmed the surface basically and elaborated on just what was essentially a small portion of the story. But I remember the story bringing me to tears. I remember it being one of those types of stories, basically. And it was good. Like, obviously, it seemed like the animation was pretty much just pretty good for was Flash. It was very much done in its own like unique kind of style, basically. But the narrator's endearing retelling of this story of her life with this man, this love of her life, how they got together, their trials and tribulations, basically, was, I mean, I'm getting choked up a little bit just talking about it. And I remembered several years ago inquiring about the story. Now, after the website that was hosting it is gone. ubergeek.tv shut down a long time ago. Flash is no longer available. And I remember specifically that the creator of the animation, the creator of the version that I had seen was right when he had just released it. He released the entire 10-minute video as like one long 10-minute video. But sometime after its release, he restricted the video. I don't know why. Maybe for cost reasons or something like that. But he put in a pay-to-view. I think it was like 99 cents or 50 cents or something. Like, he cut it in two parts. It was still one 10-minute video, but you could only watch for after like a few weeks after it was released or a few months after it was released, you could only watch the first 5 minutes of it. It had a stop point. And you would need to essentially buy like a paid credit or something like that through some third party. And then that would allow you to watch the second half of it a couple of times, basically. And I'm pretty certain that up until the site became defunct, that was how the video was treated. So I never really I mean, I remember the ending vividly. I absolutely remember how it ends. But that's all that animation will be to me, just a memory. It's gone. There's no archive of it. There's been no re-release of it. The guy who, at least somebody online who claimed to be the creator of the original website, who cited the fact that of why he shut the site down, particularly because he knew Flash. Flash was on its way out. Everybody had migrated to a new system basically at that point. In a new way, basically a whole new path. Basically, it was like, well, at this point, it was just you might as well just archive everything that he had done. And like I said, some of his videos were archived. Geeks in Love was not one of them. There is one write-up about Geeks in Love that I was able to find through a Google search. Pretty much like a news article that didn't go very much in depth about it. And I remember inquiring to at least the person who was running the YouTube channel that's claimed to be the creator. And I said, what happened to Geeks in Love? And he never replied. He never responded to it. It's possible he might have lost it. It's possible, it was probably at least 10 years since I had last watched it, at least. It's possible it could be gone. I don't know. If anybody has a copy of it, or if anybody during its initial release might have a copy of it, I'd be really interested to watch it again. Please get it onto the archive. It's worth the 10 minutes. Until next time, guys, my name is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Take care. Over and out. Oh, and by the way, always remember to partition your drives and patch your kernel. Thank you.